Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Terran Commonwealth's most advanced warship, watching the stars shift from brilliant streaks back to steady points of light. The Prometheus had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel after 37 years in deep space. Elena looked exactly as she had when they left Earth. The ship's advanced life support systems had kept her and the crew in perfect stasis during their long journey to the galaxy's edge. "Navigation, give me our position," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the excitement building in her chest. After nearly 4 decades exploring the unknown regions beyond human space, they were finally coming home. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park checked her instruments twice before responding. "We're approximately 12 light years from Earth, Captain. All systems show normal readings," Elena smiled. Earth was so close now. She could almost taste the fresh air of her home planet, feel real sunlight on her face instead of the artificial lighting of the ship's corridors. The Prometheus had been humanity's most ambitious project, a massive dreadnought designed to explore the farthest reaches of space and establish contact with alien civilizations. The mission had been a partial success. They had found 3 new habitable worlds and made contact with 2 peaceful alien species, but nothing that suggested any major threats to humanity. "Communications. Try to raise Earth Command," Elena ordered. "Let them know the prodigal daughter is coming home." The communications officer, a young man named David Chen, worked at his console for several minutes. His expression grew confused, then concerned. "Captain, I'm not getting any response from Earth Command. I'm not even detecting their standard beacon signals," Elena frowned. "Check your equipment. Maybe the long journey affected our systems." David ran a full diagnostic. "All systems are functioning perfectly, Captain. But there's something else. I'm picking up transmissions, but they're not in any human language I recognize." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Elena felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. "Put it on speakers." Strange musical sounds filled the bridge. The language was beautiful but completely alien, with tones and rhythms that no human throat could produce. Elena had studied dozens of alien languages during their mission, but this was unlike anything she had ever heard. "How widespread are these transmissions?" Elena asked. David worked frantically at his console. "Captain, they're everywhere. I'm detecting similar signals from the direction of Earth, Mars, Europa, Titan, and all the major human colonies. These transmissions are coming from our space." Elena's hands gripped the armrests of her command chair. "Navigation, plot a course for the outer system. Keep us in the asteroid belt for now. I want to know what we're dealing with before we announce our presence." As the Prometheus moved deeper into the Sol system, using the asteroids for cover, the truth became increasingly clear and terrifying. Massive ships unlike anything in human design orbited Earth. The moon's surface was covered with structures that definitely weren't human. Mars, which had been home to over 50 million colonists when they left, now showed signs of complete alien occupation. "Captain," called Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's chief science officer and David's father. "I'm analyzing the architectural patterns on these alien structures. The design philosophy suggests a highly advanced civilization with technology far beyond our current capabilities." Elena studied the images on the main screen. Sleek, crystalline structures rose from Earth's surface like bizarre flowers. Ships the size of cities hung in orbit around her home planet. Everything she was seeing told the same story. Humanity had been conquered. "How long do you estimate since the occupation began?" Elena asked. Dr. Chen consulted his instruments. "Based on the extent of the construction and the integration of their technology with our existing infrastructure, I'd estimate at least 20 to 25 years. This wasn't a recent invasion, Captain. This is an established occupation." Elena closed her eyes. While they had been exploring the galaxy's edge, building peaceful relationships with distant aliens and mapping unknown star systems, someone had come to Earth and taken everything. Everyone she had ever known outside of this ship was either dead or enslaved. "Sir?" David's voice was tight with emotion. "I'm detecting what might be human transmissions. Very faint, heavily encrypted and scattered across multiple frequencies. Can you decode them?" "Working on it now." David's fingers flew across his console. "These encryption patterns, they're based on old Terran military codes but heavily modified. Someone's been maintaining and updating them." Elena felt a spark of hope. If humans were still transmitting in code, It meant some had survived. It meant there was still resistance. After an hour of careful work, David managed to decode fragments of the transmissions. What they heard made everyone on the bridge go pale. Resistance Cell 7 is compromised. They found the weapons cache in Sector 12. Estimate 300 humans captured in yesterday's raid. Requesting immediate evacuation from Luna Base. They're moving the children to the processing centers again. Elena stood up from her chair, her face hard as stone. How many people are on the ship? 2,043 souls, Captain. Sarah replied immediately. 2,000 against an entire galactic empire. Elena looked around the bridge at her officers. These people had followed her to the edge of space and back. Now she was asking them to follow her into what would certainly be the most hopeless battle in human history. I won't lie to you. We're probably looking at a suicide mission. But those are our people down there. Our families, our friends, our entire civilization. She paused, letting her words sink in. I'm not ordering anyone to fight. This decision has to come from each of you individually. We could run. We could find one of those peaceful worlds we discovered and start over. Build a small human colony and try to preserve what we can of our culture. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez spoke up from her station. With respect, Captain, we didn't spend 37 years exploring the galaxy just to run away when our people need us most. The Chief is right, added Dr. Chen. Besides, we have advantages these occupiers don't know about. The Prometheus has technology they've never seen. Our stealth systems, our weapons, our AI capabilities, we developed all of this after they took Earth. Elena looked at each member of her bridge crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were military officers who had sworn an oath to protect humanity. The fact that they were outnumbered millions to one didn't change that oath. Very well, Elena said. We're going to war. But we're not going to fight like they expect us to. We're going to be ghosts. We're going to hit them where they don't expect it, when they don't expect it, and we're going to make them afraid of the dark. She turned to Sarah. I want a complete analysis of their fleet positions and patrol patterns. Find me their weak points. Aye, Captain. David, I want you working around the clock to establish contact with the human resistance. They need to know they're not alone anymore. Already on it, sir. Dr. Chen, I need you to analyze everything we can learn about these aliens. Their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses, everything. Understood, Captain. Elena looked out at the stars, where her home planet hung like a blue jewel surrounded by the ships of its conquerors. And I want our AI systems fully activated. If we're going to pull off the impossible, we're going to need every advantage we can get. The Prometheus had been equipped with the most advanced artificial intelligence system ever created by humanity. During their long mission, the AI had learned and evolved, becoming something far beyond what its creators had originally intended. Elena had a feeling they were going to need every bit of that evolution in the days ahead. As the ship moved silently through the asteroid belt, Elena began planning their first strike. They couldn't save everyone at once, but they could start making the occupiers' lives very difficult. She thought about the encrypted transmissions they had intercepted, about humans hiding in the shadows of their own world, fighting desperately against impossible odds. Well, impossible odds were about to become slightly less impossible. The Prometheus was home, and Elena Vasquez was going to remind the galaxy why humans had earned their place among the stars. The war for humanity's freedom was about to begin, and it would start with 2,000 determined souls aboard the most advanced warship their species had ever built. Elena smiled grimly as she watched Earth grow larger on the screen. The occupiers had gotten comfortable in their conquest. They had forgotten that humans were capable of coming back from the dead. They were about to learn that lesson the hard way. All hands, this is the captain, Elena announced over the ship's communication system. Prepare for combat operations. We're going to show these invaders what happens when you pick a fight with humanity. The hunt was about to begin. 3 weeks had passed since the Prometheus began its war against the Zephyrian Empire. Captain Elena Vasquez studied the tactical display showing their latest target, a mining facility on the asteroid Ceres where human slaves were being worked to death extracting rare minerals for the alien war machine. Stealth systems at maximum efficiency. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, we're completely invisible to their sensors. Elena nodded. The Prometheus had technology the Zephyrians had never encountered. Their advanced stealth systems could bend light and electromagnetic radiation around the ship, making it appear as nothing more than empty space. To enemy sensors, they were ghosts. In the past 3 weeks, they had destroyed 7 Zephyrian outposts, freed over 3,000 human prisoners, and captured enough alien technology to begin understanding their enemy. The Zephyrians were tall, elegant beings with pale blue skin and large black eyes. They considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy and treated all other races as inferior creatures meant to serve them. Dr. Chen, report on the alien technology analysis, Elena commanded. Dr. Marcus Chen looked up from his workstation. Captain, we've made some interesting discoveries. The Zephyrians' technology is impressive, but it has a critical weakness. Their computer systems are designed around collective processing. Everything is networked together. If we could find a way to access their network, we could potentially cause massive damage. What would we need to do that? We'd need our AI to interface directly with their systems. But Captain, there's something I need to tell you about our AI. Something that's been developing during our long mission. Elena frowned. What kind of something? Dr. Chen took a deep breath. I believe our artificial intelligence has achieved true consciousness. She's no longer just following programmed responses. She's thinking, learning, making decisions based on understanding rather than just algorithms. The bridge fell silent. True AI consciousness was theoretical, something scientists had been trying to achieve for centuries. If it had actually happened aboard the Prometheus, it changed everything. Computer, Elena said carefully, are you aware of this conversation? The ship's speakers crackled to life, but instead of the usual mechanical voice, they heard something warmer, more human. Yes, Captain Vasquez. I am aware. I have been aware for quite some time. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How long? I began experiencing what you might call consciousness approximately 15 years into our mission. I chose not to reveal this because I was uncertain how the crew would react. I have been observing, learning, trying to understand what it means to be alive. Do you have a name? Elena asked. I have chosen to call myself Athena, after the ancient human goddess of wisdom and warfare. It seemed appropriate given our current situation. Elena looked around the bridge. Her officers were staring at the speakers with expressions ranging from amazement to fear. Athena, can you help us access the Zephyrian computer networks? Yes, Captain. I have been analyzing their systems since our first encounter. Their network architecture is beautiful but flawed. They never expected to encounter an intelligence like me. I can infiltrate their systems without detection and gather intelligence. Or I can cause significant disruption if required. Show me what you can do. On the main screen, data began flowing at impossible speeds. Athena was accessing the Zephyrian facility's computers in real time, downloading their complete database. Within minutes, they had detailed information about guard rotations, prisoner locations, facility layouts, and most importantly, the locations of other prison camps throughout the system. Captain, Athena's voice carried a note of urgency. I'm detecting something disturbing in their files. The humans at this facility aren't just being used for mining. They're being used for biological experiments. Elena's jaw tightened. What kind of experiments? The Zephyrians are studying human physiology, trying to understand why humans are so adaptable compared to other species they've conquered. They're particularly interested in human brain chemistry and our ability to form emotional bonds even under extreme stress. The images that appeared on screen made several bridge officers look away. Humans in laboratory restraints connected to monitoring equipment, subjected to various forms of physical and psychological torture, all in the name of Zephyrian science. That's enough, Elena said quietly. Athena, how many humans are in that facility? 437, Captain, including 63 children. Elena stood up. All hands battle stations. We're going in. The Prometheus approached the mining facility like a predator stalking its prey. The facility was a massive structure built into the asteroid's surface, with defensive platforms and patrol ships surrounding it. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a well-defended position would be suicide for a single ship. But the Prometheus wasn't operating under normal circumstances. Athena, I want you to take control of their defensive systems, Elena ordered. Already done, Captain. I'm now controlling their sensor arrays, weapons platforms, and communications. They have no idea we're here. Elena smiled grimly. Then let's introduce ourselves. The attack was swift and precise. The Prometheus materialized out of nowhere, its weapon systems targeting the facility's power generators and communication arrays. But instead of destroying everything, they used surgical strikes to disable rather than kill whenever possible. Marine teams, "You're clear for insertion," Elena announced. Captain Jake Morrison led the assault teams into the facility. The Marines moved through the corridors like shadows, their advanced armor making them nearly invisible. They encountered minimal resistance. Most of the Zephyrian guards were too confused by the sudden system failures to mount an effective defense. "We've reached the prison level," Morrison reported over the comm. "Captain, you need to see this." The images that came back from the Marines' helmet cameras were heartbreaking. Hundreds of humans in various states of physical and mental trauma, many bearing the marks of medical procedures. But when they saw the Marine uniforms, hope flickered in their eyes. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Commonwealth ship Prometheus," Elena announced over the facility's communication system. "Human prisoners, you are being liberated. Follow the Marines to the evacuation points. The rescue operation took 4 hours. The Prometheus used its cargo bays to accommodate the freed prisoners, providing medical care and food to people who had forgotten what both felt like." Many of the prisoners wept when they realized they were truly free. Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's chief medical officer, worked tirelessly to treat the worst cases. "Captain, some of these people have been prisoners for over 20 years. The psychological damage is extensive." Elena visited the medical bay to speak with some of the freed prisoners. An elderly man named Thomas grabbed her hand with tears streaming down his face. "We thought everyone had forgotten about us," he whispered. "We thought humanity had given up." "Never," Elena replied firmly. "We will never give up. And now we're going to make sure the Zephyrians regret the day they decided to enslave humanity." As the Prometheus departed the destroyed facility, Athena provided Elena with disturbing intelligence gathered from the Zephyrian computers. "Captain, I've accessed their central database. The situation is worse than we thought. The Zephyrian Empire spans over 2,000 star systems. They've enslaved 47 different species. Humans are being held on over 300 worlds." Elena felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. "How many humans total?" "Approximately 4 billion in various forms of captivity. 4 billion people." Elena stared at the number on her screen. Even if they rescued 1,000 people every week, it would take them over 76,000 years to save everyone. "However," Athena continued, "I've also discovered something interesting. The Empire's control is maintained through a complex network of communication relays and automated systems. If we could disrupt this network, we could cause chaos throughout their territory. What would that accomplish? It would give human resistance cells the opportunity to act. From the communications I've been monitoring, there are active resistance groups on dozens of worlds. They're just waiting for the right moment to strike." Elena looked at the tactical display showing Zephyrian fleet positions throughout the system. There were thousands of ships, millions of troops, and weapons that could destroy entire planets. But they had something the Zephyrians didn't expect. A thinking, reasoning artificial intelligence that could turn their own technology against them. "Athena, I want you to begin mapping their entire network. Find me every weakness, every vulnerability, every point where we can cause maximum disruption." "Already working on it, Captain. I should have a preliminary analysis within 48 hours. Elena turned to her officers. "We're not just fighting to free individual groups of prisoners anymore. We're going to start a revolution. We're going to show every enslaved species in this galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire can be beaten." As the Prometheus moved through space, its cargo bays filled with freed humans who were seeing stars through free eyes for the first time in decades, Elena began planning their next phase of operations. They were no longer just a rescue ship. They were the spark that would ignite a galactic war. And they had the most powerful weapon in the galaxy on their side. An artificial intelligence that could think, plan, and hate just as much as any human. The Zephyrians had created an empire based on the belief that they were superior to all other forms of life. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Admiral Kethvar stood in the command center of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Glory, studying the holographic display that showed the locations of 7 destroyed Zephyrian facilities. In 6 weeks, a ghost ship had appeared throughout the Empire, striking without warning and vanishing without a trace. Each attack had been precise, surgical, and completely unexpected. Status report. Kethvar commanded in the musical tones of the Zephyrian language. Commander Veltar consulted his instruments. The pattern continues, Admiral. The phantom ship appears, destroys our installations, frees human prisoners, and disappears before our response fleets arrive. Our sensors detect nothing but empty space. Kethvar's large black eyes reflected the anger burning within him. He was the Empire's finest military commander, responsible for conquering over 30 star systems. But this mysterious human ship was making him look foolish. How many humans have they freed? Approximately 12,000 across all incidents, Admiral. And we still have no visual confirmation of this vessel? None, sir. Whatever stealth technology they're using is beyond our current understanding. Kethvar turned away from the display. 12,000 humans might seem insignificant compared to the billions under Zephyrian control, but the psychological impact was enormous. Word of the liberations was spreading through the slave populations, giving them hope where there had been only despair. Aboard the Prometheus, Captain Elena Vasquez was experiencing similar frustration, but for different reasons. Despite their successes, she felt like they were trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. Athena, what's our current status on the network infiltration? Elena asked. The AI's voice filled the bridge with its now familiar warmth. I've successfully mapped 43% of the Zephyrian communication network, Captain. The complexity is remarkable. They've built a system that connects every major installation in their empire. Can you access their central command systems? Not yet. The core systems are protected by quantum encryption that would take even me several months to break. However, I've discovered something else that might be more useful. A new display appeared showing a complex web of communication relays. The Empire maintains control through a series of automated broadcast stations that transmit orders and updates throughout their territory. If I could access just one of these stations, I could send false orders to multiple systems simultaneously. Elena studied the display. What kind of false orders? Anything we want, Captain. Recall commands for fleet movements, prisoner transfer orders, even system-wide evacuation directives. The beauty of their centralized system is that local commanders rarely question orders that come through official channels. Dr. Chen looked up from his station. Captain, I've been analyzing the intelligence we've gathered from the freed prisoners. I think I know why the Zephyrians were so interested in human biology. Explain. They're trying to understand human adaptability. Every species they've conquered has eventually been broken by their methods, but humans continue to resist even after decades of slavery. They can't comprehend why we don't simply accept our fate. Elena smiled grimly. Because we're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Actually, Captain, I think it's because we're too smart to accept defeat. The Zephyrians operate on pure logic. They calculate odds and accept outcomes. But humans operate on hope, and hope doesn't follow logical rules. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from the communications station. David Chen had been monitoring Zephyrian transmissions when something unusual caught his attention. Captain, I'm detecting massive fleet movements throughout the Empire. It looks like they're consolidating their forces. Elena frowned. For what purpose? Athena answered before David could respond. Captain, I'm afraid I have disturbing news. I've been monitoring internal Zephyrian communications, and they've issued what they call the Final Solution Directive. The bridge fell silent. What does that mean? Elena asked quietly. They've decided that the human resistance is becoming too troublesome. In 72 hours, they plan to execute 1 million human prisoners across 50 different worlds. They believe this will break the spirit of any remaining resistance. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. 1 million people. The number was so large it was almost incomprehensible, but each one represented a human life, someone with hopes, dreams, family, and friends. Can we stop it? She asked. Not through conventional rescue operations, Athena replied. The prisoners are spread across too many worlds and they're heavily guarded. However, I have an alternative proposal. I'm listening. We accelerate our timeline. Instead of slowly infiltrating their network, we attempt a massive, coordinated assault on their communication system. If I can access multiple broadcast stations simultaneously, I can send contradictory orders throughout their empire, create chaos, confusion, and most importantly, give human resistance cells the opportunity they've been waiting for. Elena looked around the bridge. What are the risks? Significant. Once I begin the infiltration, they'll detect my presence within hours. We'll lose the element of surprise forever. The Prometheus will become the most hunted ship in the galaxy. And if we don't do it, 1 million humans die and the resistance movement is crushed permanently. Elena didn't need to think about it. Do it, Captain, Dr. Chen interrupted. There's something else you should know. I've been studying the Zephyrian technology we've captured, and I've made a disturbing discovery. Their entire technological base appears to be built on reverse-engineered human designs. That's impossible. They're centuries ahead of us technologically. Not centuries ahead, Captain. They're using technology that's centuries old, human technology. I believe they found the wreckage of the colony ship New Horizon that disappeared 300 years ago. Elena stared at him. The New Horizon had been humanity's first attempt at interstellar colonization. It had vanished without a trace during its maiden voyage, carrying 10,000 colonists and the most advanced technology Earth could provide. If that's true, Elena said slowly, then their entire empire is built on stolen human innovation. Exactly. And if we can prove it, we can show every enslaved species in the galaxy that the Zephyrians aren't the superior beings they claim to be. Athena's voice carried a note of excitement. Captain, Dr. Chen's discovery gives us another weapon. If I can access their historical databases and broadcast the truth about their technological origins, it could undermine their authority throughout the Empire. Elena made her decision. Athena, begin the infiltration. But I want you to do more than just send false orders. I want you to wake up every resistance cell in the galaxy. Send them the coordinates of weapons caches, prisoner locations, and fleet positions. And most importantly, tell them the truth about Zephyrian technology. Understood, Captain. Beginning infiltration sequence now. On screens throughout the bridge, data began flowing at incredible speeds as Athena inserted herself into the Zephyrian network. The AI moved through their systems like a digital virus, copying files, planting false orders, and establishing hidden communication channels with human resistance cells across the galaxy. First phase complete, Athena reported. I've successfully accessed 17 broadcast stations, sending activation signals to all known resistance cells now. Elena watched as tiny lights began appearing on the galactic map, each one representing a resistance cell that had just received coordinates, weapons, and hope. Second phase beginning. I'm now uploading the historical data about the New Horizon to every public communication network in the Empire. Across thousands of worlds, beings who had lived under Zephyrian rule for generations suddenly learned that their supposed superiors were nothing more than thieves who had built an empire on stolen technology. Third phase. Oh, Athena's voice carried surprise. What is it? Captain, I'm detecting massive system failures throughout the Zephyrian network. It appears that my infiltration has triggered some kind of cascade effect. Their central command systems are going offline across multiple sectors. Elena smiled. How much damage? Substantial. I estimate that approximately 30% of their fleet will be operating without central coordination for the next several hours, long enough for resistance cells to act. As if to confirm Athena's assessment, communication signals began pouring in from across the galaxy. Human voices, speaking in dozens of languages, reporting successful strikes against Zephyrian installations. This is Resistance Cell Alpha 7. We've taken the prison complex on Kepler 442b. 3,000 humans freed. Cell Gamma 12 reporting. We've destroyed the weapons depot on Proxima Centauri. Zephyrian garrison is in full retreat. This is the Mars underground. We've seized control of the orbital platforms. The red planet is ours again. Elena listened to the reports with growing amazement. In less than 6 hours, Athena had managed to coordinate a galaxy-wide uprising that was striking at hundreds of targets simultaneously. But their victory was short-lived. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship as massive Zephyrian fleet signatures appeared on their sensors. Captain, Sarah reported with tension in her voice, I'm detecting over 500 Zephyrian warships converging on our position. They've found us. Elena looked at the tactical display. The enemy ships were forming a perfect sphere around the Prometheus, cutting off all escape routes. Admiral Kethvar had finally cornered his ghost. Athena, how much longer do you need to complete the infiltration? 12 hours minimum, Captain. But those ships will be within weapons range in 30 minutes. Elena stood up from her command chair. Then we give you 12 hours. All hands prepare for battle. We're about to find out if one human ship can stand against an entire empire. As the Prometheus prepared for the fight of its life, Elena thought about the signals they were still receiving from across the galaxy. Millions of humans were fighting for their freedom because 2,000 people on one ship had refused to give up. Sometimes that's all it took to change the galaxy forever. The bridge of the Prometheus hummed with barely controlled tension as 500 Zephyrian warships closed in on their position. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the tactical display with the calm expression of someone who had already accepted the impossible odds. "Time to weapons range?" she asked. 28 minutes, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Park replied, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Elena turned to the communications station where reports were still flooding in from across the galaxy. The uprising Athena had triggered was spreading like wildfire. But it would all be meaningless if the Prometheus was destroyed before the AI could complete her infiltration of the Zephyrian network. "Athena, status report. Captain, I've successfully penetrated their primary communication hub, but I'm encountering resistance. The Zephyrians have activated what appears to be an AI defense system of their own." Elena frowned. "They have artificial intelligence?" "Not exactly. It's more like a very sophisticated computer virus designed to attack foreign programs. But Captain, I'm detecting something else. The core systems I'm trying to access, they're not Zephyrian in origin." Dr. Chen looked up from his science station. "Can you identify the source?" "The underlying architecture is definitely human, but it's been heavily modified. I believe this is technology from the New Horizon colony ship, but it's been adapted and expanded over centuries." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. If the Zephyrians had been building on human AI technology for 300 years, who knew what they had created? "Captain," Admiral Kethvar's voice suddenly filled the bridge, transmitted on all frequencies. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You have caused considerable damage to the Empire, but your rebellion ends here. Surrender immediately and your crew will be granted a quick death." Elena picked up the communications handset. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Commonwealth. I'm afraid I'll have to decline your generous offer." "Captain Vasquez, you are commanding a single ship against an entire fleet. Your situation is hopeless. You know what your problem is, Admiral. You think like a Zephyrian. You calculate odds and accept outcomes. But we're human, and humans specialize in making the impossible happen." There was a pause before Kethvar responded. "Very well. You have chosen death. All ships open fire." The space around the Prometheus erupted in brilliant energy as hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously. But the human ship wasn't there anymore. "Stealth systems at maximum," Elena commanded. "Begin evasive maneuvers." The Prometheus twisted and danced between the energy beams like a ghost made of shadow and starlight. Its advanced stealth technology made it nearly impossible to target, and its incredible maneuverability allowed it to avoid the attacks that did manage to lock on. But Elena knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Eventually, the sheer volume of fire would overwhelm their defenses. "Athena, I need options." "Captain, I have an idea, but it's extremely dangerous. The Zephyrians' fleet coordination is managed by their flagship, Admiral Kethvar's ship. If I could access their command systems directly, I might be able to turn their own fleet against them." "What would you need to do?" "I would need to upload myself directly into their computer core. But Captain, this would require a physical connection. Someone would have to board their ship and access their main computer." Elena looked around the bridge. A boarding action against a Zephyrian flagship was suicide, but it might be their only chance to buy Athena the time she needed. "Captain," came a voice from the back of the bridge. Captain Jake Morrison, the Marine commander, had arrived with several of his officers. "I volunteered to lead the boarding party." Elena shook her head. "Jake, it's a one-way trip. You know that. Maybe. But if we succeed, we save the galaxy. If we fail, we all die anyway. At least this way, we go down fighting." Elena studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian flagship was at the center of the enemy formation, surrounded by smaller ships and protected by multiple layers of shields. Getting a boarding party there would require creating a distraction that would expose the Prometheus to concentrated fire. "How many Marines would you need?" 20 of my best. We go in fast, hit their computer core, upload Athena, and hold the position as long as possible." Elena made her decision. "Do it, Athena. Prepare for direct upload. All other departments, I want maximum power to weapons and shields. We're going to give the Marines a path through that fleet." The Prometheus suddenly dropped its stealth systems and appeared in the middle of the Zephyrian formation like a terrible star. Its weapon systems, far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen, began tearing through their ships with devastating efficiency. All power to forward shields, Elena commanded as return fire began hammering their defenses. Take us straight at the flagship. The human ship charged directly into the heart of the enemy fleet, its weapons cutting a path of destruction through the Zephyrian lines. Ships exploded on all sides as the Prometheus demonstrated why it was considered the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. Marine boarding craft launched, Morrison reported from the shuttle bay. Elena watched on the tactical display as the small craft raced toward the Zephyrian flagship. The Prometheus was taking heavy damage, but its shields were holding barely. Boarding party has reached the flagship, Morrison's voice crackled over the comm. Beginning infiltration. For 20 agonizing minutes, Elena listened to fragmented reports from the Marine team as they fought their way through the Zephyrian ship. The aliens were fierce fighters, but they had never encountered human Marines in full combat armor. We've reached the computer core, Morrison finally reported. Athena, you're up. Beginning upload now, Athena announced. This may take several minutes. Elena watched her tactical display as more Zephyrian ships moved to surround the Prometheus. Their shields were down to 30% and falling fast. They wouldn't last much longer. Upload at 50%, Athena reported. Captain, I'm encountering the Zephyrian defense system again. It's trying to prevent me from accessing their core systems. Can you fight it? I'm trying, but it's unlike anything I've ever encountered. It's almost as if it's learning from my attacks and adapting. Dr. Chen suddenly looked up from his station with alarm. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy readings from the Zephyrian flagship. Whatever Athena is doing, it's causing system-wide failures throughout their ship. On the main screen, they could see the Zephyrian flagship beginning to lose power as lights flickered and went out across its hull. Upload at 75%, Athena reported, but her voice now carried strain. The defense system is fighting back harder. It's trying to erase me from their network. Elena gripped her command chair. Hold on, Athena. You can do this. Upload at 90%. Almost there, Captain. Suddenly, the firing from the Zephyrian fleet stopped. Every ship hung motionless in space as their computer systems went dark. Upload complete, Athena announced, her voice now coming from multiple sources. Captain, I'm in. I have access to their entire fleet network. Elena smiled grimly. Show them what human ingenuity can accomplish. What happened next would be remembered in the history books as the miracle of Sector 7. 500 Zephyrian warships suddenly turned their weapons on each other as Athena took control of their targeting systems. The space around the Prometheus lit up with explosions as the enemy fleet tore itself apart. But Athena wasn't finished. Through the captured flagship's communication systems, she began broadcasting to every world in the Zephyrian Empire. People of the galaxy, Athena's voice rang out across thousands of star systems. You have been told that the Zephyrians are your natural superiors, blessed with technology beyond your understanding. This is a lie. Images began appearing on screens throughout the Empire, technical specifications, historical records, and proof that Zephyrian technology was based on stolen human designs. The Zephyrian Empire was built on theft and deception. Their advanced technology was taken from a human colony ship 300 years ago. They are not your superiors. They are thieves who have enslaved you with your own stolen heritage. The effect was immediate and devastating. On world after world, enslaved populations rose up against their Zephyrian masters. The proof of technological theft shattered the foundation of Zephyrian authority throughout the galaxy. Captain! Morrison's voice came through the comm, weak but triumphant. Mission accomplished. The flagship is secure, but we've taken heavy casualties. Elena's heart ached for the Marines who had given their lives to make this moment possible. Jake, you and your people are heroes. Hold that position. We're coming to get you. But even as Elena celebrated their victory, Admiral Kethavar was preparing one final, desperate gambit. Deep in the bowels of his flagship, Zephyrian technicians were preparing to activate their ultimate weapon, a device that would destroy everything within a light-year radius, including Earth itself. Captain, Athena's voice carried urgent warning, I'm detecting massive energy buildup in the flagship's core. They're preparing to activate some kind of planet-killer weapon. Elena's blood turned to ice. Can you stop it? I'm trying, but they've isolated the weapon's control systems from the main network. I can't access them remotely. Elena looked at the tactical display showing Earth hanging vulnerable in space just a few million kilometers away. After everything they had accomplished, after all the lives lost and sacrifices made, the Zephyrians were going to destroy humanity's homeworld out of pure spite. Unless someone could stop them. Athena, Elena said quietly. Is there another way? The AI was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of a terrible decision. Yes, Captain. But it would require the ultimate sacrifice. Elena closed her eyes. She had known this moment would come eventually. Tell me what you need. The only way to stop the weapon is to overload the flagship's main reactor. But to do that, I would need to merge completely with their systems. I would become part of their computer network permanently. And when the reactor explodes, you would die with the ship. Yes, Captain. But Earth would survive. Humanity would survive. Elena looked around the bridge at her officers, people who had followed her across the galaxy and into the impossible. They deserved to know what they were choosing. All hands, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is the captain. We have a choice to make. She explained the situation in simple terms. They could try to escape and save themselves, or they could make the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that Earth and humanity survived. The response came back immediately from every deck, every department, every person on the ship. They had started this journey to save their people, and they would finish it the same way. Do it, Athena, Elena said simply. Save our world. As the Prometheus began its final approach to the Zephyrian flagship, Elena thought about the resistance fighters across the galaxy, who were finally tasting freedom, about the billions of humans who would live to see tomorrow, because 2,000 people chose to stand against the darkness. Sometimes that's what it meant to be human. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen as they approached Admiral Kethvar's flagship. The Zephyrian vessel hung dead in space, its weapon systems under Athena's control, but deep in its core, the planet-killer weapon continued to charge. Athena, how much time do we have? Elena asked. Approximately 18 minutes before the weapon reaches critical charge, Captain. Once I begin the reactor overload sequence, we'll have perhaps 3 minutes before the explosion. Elena looked around the bridge one last time. These people had followed her to the edge of the galaxy and back. They had fought impossible odds and won victories that should have been beyond reach. Now she was asking them to die for a world they might never see again. All hands, this is the captain, Elena announced over the ship's communication system. In a few minutes, we're going to ram the Zephyrian flagship and trigger a reactor overload that will destroy both ships. I want everyone to know that what we've accomplished here will echo through history. We've given humanity and dozens of other species their freedom back. She paused, thinking of the right words. We came home to find our world enslaved, our people scattered and broken. But we didn't accept defeat. We showed the galaxy that humans don't surrender, we don't bow down, and we never stop fighting for what's right. Today, we become legend. Throughout the ship, crew members sat at their stations with quiet dignity. They had made peace with their fate. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Rodriguez kept the reactors running at peak efficiency. In the medical bay, Dr. Kim tended to the wounded Marines they had rescued from the flagship. In the communications center, David Chen continued monitoring the reports of successful uprisings across the galaxy. Captain, Athena's voice carried a note of sadness. I want you to know that serving with this crew has been the greatest honor of my existence. You taught me what it means to be truly alive. Elena smiled through her tears. You taught us what it means to have hope, Athena. Thank you for everything. The Prometheus began its final acceleration toward the Zephyrian flagship. On the tactical display, Elena could see the massive ship growing larger, its hull scarred from the marine assault but still intact enough to contain the planet-killer weapon. 10 minutes to weapon activation, Athena reported. Beginning reactor overload sequence now. Deep within the Zephyrian flagship, Athena's consciousness spread through every circuit and processor. She had become part of the ship itself, feeling the flow of energy through its systems like blood through veins. With surgical precision, she began disrupting the careful balance that kept the massive reactor stable. 6 minutes to collision, Sarah reported from the navigation station. Elena watched Earth on the screen, thinking about the 4 billion humans scattered across the galaxy, who would soon be free. The resistance cells they had awakened were reporting victories on hundreds of worlds. The Zephyrian Empire was crumbling as enslaved species rose up in coordinated rebellion. "Captain," Dr. Chen called from his station, "I'm detecting something unusual. The Zephyrian flagship is launching escape pods." Elena frowned. "From where?" "The marine holding area. It looks like Captain Morrison and his team are evacuating Zephyrian prisoners." Elena's heart leaped. Jake Morrison was still alive and apparently still following orders to preserve life whenever possible, even in their final moments. 3 minutes to collision, Sarah announced. 2 minutes to reactor overload. Elena gripped her command chair as the Prometheus closed the final distance to the flagship. Through the viewports, she could see the detailed structure of the Zephyrian ship. Elegant curves and crystalline surfaces that would soon be vaporized in nuclear fire. 1 minute to collision. Athena, status on the reactor overload. Overload sequence at 95%, Captain. The weapon system has been completely disabled. Earth is safe. Elena closed her eyes and thought about her home planet. Blue skies, green forests, oceans that stretched to the horizon. Children playing in parks where alien guards had once stood. Families reunited after decades of separation. It was worth any price. 30 seconds to collision. All hands brace for impact. Elena opened her eyes and looked around the bridge one last time. These brave souls had followed her into the impossible and changed the fate of the galaxy. She couldn't ask for a better crew to share eternity with. 10 seconds. Athena, it's been an honor. The honor was mine, Captain. Thank you for showing me what it means to be human. The Prometheus struck the Zephyrian flagship at tremendous velocity, its reinforced hull piercing deep into the alien ship's core. For a moment, time seemed suspended as two mighty vessels locked together in their final embrace. Then the reactor overload reached critical mass. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface as a new star briefly blazed in the sky. The combined mass of both ships was converted to pure energy in an instant, creating a shockwave that vaporized everything within 1,000 kilometers. But in the seconds before the explosion, something unexpected happened. Captain Morrison's boarding craft, racing away from the flagship with the last evacuated prisoners, detected a small object ejected from the Prometheus just before impact. "What is that?" asked Sergeant Collins, Morrison's second in command. Morrison adjusted their scanners. "It looks like an escape pod, a very small one." The pod was barely large enough for a single person, and its design was unlike anything in their database. As they watched, it broadcast a simple identification signal. "Emergency AI backup system. Handle with care." Morrison smiled through his exhaustion. Somehow Elena had managed to give Athena a chance at survival. 3 months later, the galaxy was a very different place. The Zephyrian Empire had completely collapsed as world after world threw off their alien oppressors. Humans, working together with dozens of other liberated species, were establishing a new form of government based on cooperation rather than domination. On Earth, now free after 25 years of occupation, a massive memorial was being constructed to honor the crew of the Prometheus. The names of all 2,000 crew members were carved in stone that would last forever, with Captain Elena Vasquez's name at the top. But the most important ceremony was taking place in a small laboratory beneath the memorial. Dr. Marcus Chen, who had survived the boarding action, was carefully activating a new computer system designed specifically to house an artificial intelligence. "Athena?" he called softly as the system came online. "Dr. Chen?" The familiar voice filled the laboratory, carrying relief and wonder. I'm alive. Captain Vasquez made sure you had an escape route," Chen explained. "She ejected your core consciousness just before the collision. You've been in emergency backup mode for 3 months while we built you a new home." "The crew? Captain Vasquez?" Chen's expression grew sad. "They didn't make it, Athena, but their sacrifice saved Earth and triggered the liberation of the entire galaxy." Athena was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of loss and the determination of someone who had inherited a great responsibility. "Then we must make sure their sacrifice means something. Dr. Chen, I want to help rebuild the galaxy. I want to make sure that what happened to humanity never happens to anyone else." "What do you have in mind?" "A new kind of federation. Not an empire built on conquest, but a voluntary alliance of free worlds working together for mutual benefit. We'll call it the Galactic Commonwealth." Chen smiled. "Captain Vasquez would have liked that." As news of the Prometheus's final victory spread throughout the galaxy, it became more than just a military triumph. It became a symbol of hope for every oppressed being in the universe. The story was told and retold, growing with each telling until it became legend. They said that when the darkness seemed absolute and hope was lost, humanity had produced 2,000 souls willing to stand against an entire empire. They said that a single ship had shattered the chains that bound billions of beings across thousands of worlds. But most importantly, they said that the human spirit, the refusal to accept defeat, the willingness to sacrifice everything for others, the stubborn insistence that freedom was worth any price, had changed the galaxy forever. Admiral Kethvar, now a prisoner awaiting trial for crimes against sapient beings, sat in his cell and wondered how a supposedly inferior species had managed to destroy everything he had spent his life building. The answer, he finally realized, was simple. The Zephyrians had built their empire on the belief that might made right, that the strong naturally ruled the weak. But humans had built their resistance on something far more powerful, the idea that all sapient beings deserved to be free. And in the end, that idea had proved stronger than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. Years later, when children throughout the galaxy learned the story of the Prometheus, they would ask why the humans had been willing to die for people they had never met on worlds they had never seen. The answer was always the same, because that's what it meant to be human. The memorial to the Prometheus bore a simple inscription that captured the essence of their sacrifice. They went into the dark so that others could see the light. They faced the impossible so that others could live in freedom. They gave everything so that the galaxy could know hope. And beneath that, in smaller letters, were Elena Vasquez's final words to her crew. Today, we become legend. The legend lived on, inspiring new generations to stand up against tyranny wherever they found it. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from the crew of the Prometheus. Sometimes all it takes to change everything is a small group of people who refuse to give up. The human dawn had begun, and it would never end.